the man who could not write it down. The memoir of Panagiotis Demestichas, officer of the Greek army in Asia Minor, 1919 to 1922. Prologue. There is a sentence in the memoir of Panagiotis Demestichas, Greek army officer, that has survived everything. It survived the war. It survived the retreat. It survived the burning of a dozen cities, the dissolution of an army, the collapse of a dream that had lasted 3,000 years. The sentence is this: the destruction in the cities and villages through which we passed, the arsons and other ugliness, I am not able to describe, and I prefer that the world remains oblivious to this destruction. He wrote that sentence. He published it. He chose those words over silence. He was a man who had seen everything, and the one thing he chose to tell the world was that he could not tell them. This is the story of what he saw. Part 1, The Beginning of the Dream. May 15, 1919. On the morning of May 15, 1919, Greek soldiers stepped ashore at Smyrna. The crowd on the docks was enormous. Greeks had lived in the city for 3,000 years, since before Athens had its marble, before Rome had its roads. The Aegean coast of Anatolia was older than Greece itself. When the soldiers stepped off the ships, people were weeping. Some threw flowers. A priest held up a cross. Panagiotis Demestichas was 33 years old. He had already fought in 2 Balkan wars and 1 World War. He was not a man who wept easily. But he understood what this moment meant. Greece was reclaiming what had always been Greece. The Greek army advanced inland and took control of western and northwestern Anatolia, Manisa, Alaşehir, Aden, Bursa, Kütahya, Eskişehir. City after city. The Aegean coast, the Meander Valley, the high Anatolian plateau. Places whose names were older than memory. Places that had been Greek before they were anything else. Demestichas moved with his division. He kept notes. He was a methodical man, a soldier who had entered the army as a volunteer corporal in 1905 and risen, battle by battle, to command. He believed in records. He believed in accuracy. He believed, in those first months, that he was part of something historical. He was right. He just did not yet know what kind of history it would be. Part 2, The Dream Stalls. August, September 1921. The Sakarya River. 2 years into the campaign, the Greek army reached the farthest point it would ever reach. In June 1921, a reinforced Greek army advanced to the river Sakarya, less than 100 kilometers west of Ankara. They could see, almost, the capital of the nationalist movement. If they took Ankara, the war was over. Mustafa Kemal would have nowhere to go. The ferocity of the battle, 21 days, August 23 to September 13, 1921, exhausted both sides to such an extent that both were contemplating withdrawal. But the Greeks withdrew first. Demestichas was in that battle, 21 days on the high plateau. The Anatolian summer. Dust that got into everything, into your eyes, into your water, into your wounds. Temperatures that cracked lips and cracked morale. And Turkish resistance that did not break, did not bend, did not give. In his letters home from Sakarya, Greek soldier Paraskevades wrote, "Our division has nearly disintegrated. Of 170 men in our company, only 50 remain. All the officers were wounded. We don't know what will happen. We are all in despair." Demestichas read reports like this. He wrote reports like this. After September 13th, the Greek army pulled back to its previous positions. They dug in. They waited. The high plateau turned cold. The supply lines stretched thinner. The politicians in Athens argued. The allies in London stopped answering letters. The dream was not over. But it had changed shape. It had become something heavier. Part 3, The Collapse. August 26, 1922. Afyonkarahisar. At 4:30 in the morning of August 26, 1922, the Turkish artillery opened fire. It was not like anything that had come before. The weight of it? The preparation. Turkish forces had concentrated overwhelming force against a weak point in the Greek lines near Afyonkarahisar. Within 48 hours, Greek defensive positions throughout central Anatolia collapsed as units retreated in disorder. Afyon fell on August 27. On August 30, the Greek army was defeated decisively at the Battle of Dumlupinar. Many soldiers captured or killed, a large part of the equipment lost. The Greek generals Nikolaos Trikoupis and Komandigenis were captured. General Trikoupis learned only after his capture that he had just been appointed commander-in-chief. The commander of the entire Greek force learned he had been promoted while standing in front of his captors. That was the Greek army in August 1922. Demestichas survived. He was among the officers who did not surrender, who did not fall. He retreated with what remained of his division west, toward the coast, toward Smyrna, toward the sea. What came next was the part he could not write. Part 4, The Burning. August 27 to September 5, 1922. The road west from Afyon to the coast is approximately 500 kilometers. The Greek army covered it in 10 days. And along that road every city, every town, every village they passed through something happened. Greek General Frango chose to retreat to Izmir and burn everything in his path. The Greek army was following a scorched earth policy. Afyonkarahisar, August 27. Greek soldier Giannis Koutsanikolas explicitly stated that his units burned Afyonkarahisar and with it, burned food, equipment, and ammunition together with the city. A city of 25,000 people. Gone. Alaşehir, Philadelphia, late August. This city had been called Philadelphia since 189 BC, the city of brotherly love, named by a king for his brother. It had survived Alexander, Rome, Byzantium, the Ottomans. It had been one of the 7 churches of Asia Minor in the Book of Revelation. It did not survive the Greek retreat of 1922. Colonel Stylianos Gonatas recorded in his memoirs that he and his units were passing through Alaşehir while it was being burned from one end to the other. He noted that neither the Turkish nor the Greek quarter was spared. James Loder Park, the American vice-consul in Constantinople, toured the ruins shortly after. He wrote, "In Alaşehir, hand pumps were used to soak the walls of buildings with kerosene. As we examined the ruins, we discovered a number of skulls and bones, charred and black, with remnants of hair and flesh clinging to them. Upon our insistence, a number of graves of fresh appearance were opened. We were fully satisfied that these bodies were not more than 4 weeks old. It is estimated some 3,000 lives were lost in the burning of Alaşehir. The city of brotherly love." Manisa, September 5 to 8. The fire of Manisa began on the night of Tuesday, September 5, 1922, and continued until September 8. It was started by the retreating Greek army. As a result, 90% of the buildings in the city were destroyed. 90%. Demestichas passed through these cities. He saw what was happening. He was an officer, he had authority. He had rank. He had 37 years of military discipline behind him. And later, when he sat down to write about it, he wrote, "I prefer that the world remains oblivious to this destruction." High voltage climax scene. The road to Smyrna, early September 1922. There is a moment that Demestichas does not describe directly. But it is there, between the lines of everything he wrote. He is on a road somewhere in western Anatolia. The date is early September 1922. The retreat has been going on for more than a week. His boots are covered in dust, the same Anatolian dust that has been his companion for 3 years, that has worked its way into every piece of his clothing, into the grooves of his rifle, into the lines of his face. Behind him, smoke. Not one column of smoke. Multiple columns. The horizon behind him is brown and orange. Cities are burning. He has passed through some of them. He has seen men from his own army with kerosene and torches. He has not stopped them. That is the detail he cannot write. A soldier since 1905. 17 years of military service. He had fought Bulgarians, Serbians, Austrians, Germans. He had fought Turks at Gallipoli and in 2 wars before this one. He knew what soldiers did in war, the things that did not go into official reports. But this was different. These were not enemy cities. These were cities with Greek churches. Cities where Greek families had lived for generations. They were burning those too. The rage of destruction and looting does not distinguish nationalities, wrote Gonatas. Demestichas kept walking. The smoke rose behind him. He was walking toward Smyrna. He did not know yet what was waiting there. Part 5, Smyrna. September 9th to 13th, 1922. The Greek army reached Smyrna in the first days of September. The city was chaos. The Greek army that had numbered over 200,000 troops had essentially ceased to exist as an organized force by early September. Soldiers surrendered en masse or deserted, fleeing individually toward the coast, abandoning artillery, supplies, and vehicles. On September 9th, Turkish forces entered Smyrna. On September 13th, fire broke out in the Armenian quarter. What happened in those 4 days between the Turkish entry and the fire, that is a history still disputed, still raw, still contested between 2 nations. What is not disputed is what the fire did. A British sailor on a ship in the harbor wrote, "There were the most awful screams one could imagine, mothers with their babies, the fire raging over their heads, their clothes catching fire. People were jumping into the water to escape the flames. On the quay, tens of thousands of people. Greek families who had lived in the city for 3,000 years. Behind them, fire. In front of them, the harbor. Allied ships, British, American, French, anchored in the water. Not moving toward the dock. Not yet. The people on the quay screamed. The ships ran their searchlights over the crowd to keep order. Then the evacuation began. Then it ended. Then the people left behind those who had not gotten on a ship, those who were too old, too sick, too slow, they were gone. The 3,000-year presence of Greeks in Asia Minor ended in 13 days of fire. Epilogue, the sentence. Panagiotis Demestichas returned to Greece. He continued his military career. He rose to the rank of lieutenant general. He led an army corps against the Italian invasion in 1940. He survived World War II, survived the German occupation of Greece, survived everything. He lived until November 14, 1960. He was 75 years old. At some point in the years after 1922, he sat down and wrote his memoirs of the Asia Minor campaign. He wrote about the landings at Smyrna. He wrote about the advance inland. He wrote about Sakarya. He wrote about the collapse at Afyon. And then he wrote about the retreat. And then he stopped. Not completely. He kept writing. But about the burning, about what he had seen on the road between Afyon and Smyrna, about the kerosene and the torches and the columns of smoke and the bodies in the shallow graves and the skulls with hair still attached, about all of that, he wrote one sentence. The destruction in the cities and villages through which we passed, the arsons and other ugliness, I am not able to describe, and I prefer that the world remains oblivious to this destruction. He was a man who had spent his entire adult life writing reports. Military reports, operational reports, campaign assessments. He knew how to put things on paper. He had the language. He had the training. He chose not to use it. I prefer that the world remains oblivious. He published the memoir anyway. He wrote the sentence that said he could not describe it. And by writing that sentence, by telling the world he preferred their ignorance, he told them everything. Some silences are louder than description. This was one of them. Panagiotis Demestichas, Greek army officer. Born July 6, 1885. Died November 14, 1960. He fought in 4 wars. He wrote one sentence about the worst thing he ever saw. That sentence has survived everything he tried to bury.